And the truth is, every human being is fallible. Every human being has their struggle. We identify with each other through those struggles. When I talk about leadership, one of the important elements of leadership, one of the 8 C's of leadership I train is connection. And connection is going through shared adversity together, right? It's easy to be connected when we're winning. It's easy to be connected when we're practicing well. It's easy to be connected when we're closing lots of deals. What about when we're not? Can you stay connected to the people in your life, through their adversity?
Welcome to the Elevate podcast. I am your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. And whether you've tuned in to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you're in the right place. My guest this episode has an incredible personal story and journey of resilience and inspiration throughout his life. He is also the host of the Overcome Out Loud podcast, where he's got more episodes coming here in 2023. He is also a speaker, coach, and a friend. Please welcome to the Elevate podcast, Charlie Smith. Charlie, how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's an awesome Friday morning. I'm so looking forward to being with you, Tyler. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I've been wanting to chat for a while. I got my pen here you sent me a long time ago.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
let's start with that. I love kind of just my pen story, and can you just talk a little bit about that to get us going? Because I think when I was younger, I surrendered my pen to other people and had consequences, and I just think it's a very powerful analogy to understand.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It is for me. And I'll tell you, the origin of it is really my own journey through life. And before I begin, I'll say, it's interesting because a lot of comments are made about social media's impact on the world and how it's could be good or bad. And it's like I think about, what you pour into things is what you get out. And really, if it wasn't for social media and being drawn to the inspiration that you provide through your platform and reaching out to you, because it was really through messaging on social media that you and I connected. I sent you the pen, and this
Yeah.
relationship was kind of blossomed out of that. So, just what you surround yourself with is what you get. So I'm grateful for both of our interest in what we do, and sending you the pen's important to me because for me, Tyler, what I realized about 14 years ago when I was suffering from acute alcoholism and addiction, and it kind of was burning my life to the ground, and I say that with the idea that from the outside, everything looked good in my life. I was a successful, entrepreneur. I had a real estate company. I was married. I had a couple of wonderful kids, but I was destroying my life with drugs and alcohol because of my internal narrative. I think things in life, we do because of the meaning we give them. And what I realized, was that a lot of things had happened to me in my past, and the pages of my life were written on by the people that had influenced me negatively when I was young. And I kept reading those pages and I kept listening to what they were saying and interpreting it as the truth, believing it. And then I was behaving in accordance with those old pages. And at some point, I had to decide, to take this back, to take this pen back and decide to write on the pages of my life, and what I'll tell you is, as much as I blamed and felt a victim of all of the abuse I suffered as a kid, which was horrific and shouldn't happen to anybody, the truth is nothing was wrong with me. Something happened to me. And when I changed my life, Tyler, when I took this pen back, the day I took it back, all those circumstances were exactly the same, but the meaning I gave them was different. And what I decided to write about the next day of my life, who Charlie Smith wanted to be, changed. And I no longer was reading the old pages. I was reading, well, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go? And that's where, I created this platform. And that's why my mission in life is to allow everybody to own the pen, to be the author of their life, to create the life they want.
I love it. I think I fell into that trap too. They always say, people trying to find and seek instead of create and be.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And I think sometimes young people get caught in that trap of they have to go out and find what they're supposed to be instead of, being empowered with creating it.
Yeah, I'm going to read you a message I just got from somebody that I met with yesterday.
Yeah.
Something shifted inside me when you broke the old pen I was holding onto into 1,000 pieces and threw it on the floor. Charlie, you gave me your pen and you said, this is your story. This is your life. You're looking through the windshield now, not the rearview mirror. It's not your sister or your father's story. It's your story. It's your life. This is your pen. I feel different today. I'm ready. And that's the idea. And you said it actually so eloquently. You don't have to find yourself, create yourself, and that is, you know, intentional. But I think a lot of us just don't know how to look through that windshield with the right perspective, with a new pair of glasses, and say, the rearview mirror is there for a reason. It's small, but the windshield's really big, and that's what I want to look through.
Yeah, I think on my own journey and probably yours too, I think the hardest moment of taking over the pen, so to speak, um, is having that truthful self-awareness. Can you talk a little bit about just kind of the importance of self-awareness and why maybe sometimes it gets a bad rap, but
Yeah.
it's really one of the most useful tools that can guide us?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had my first experience with true self-awareness when I read a book called The Secret to the Slight Edge. I wasn't much of a reader. I'd read a few business books, but I wasn't much of a reader, and I wasn't much for personal development because I had this false. The best way I could describe myself to you is I was an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And I thought if I really looked at myself, if I truly was self-aware, that I wouldn't like what I see. And so why look? I'm just going to continue to try to show you who I think you want me to be. I think that's a trap when we work with young adults, or young athletes, that kind of self-judgment of other people or expectations of other people get in the way of who you actually are as a person, that can extend to who you are as a player. And so for me, I heard a term called self-image management. And I was like, what the hell is self-image management? And self-image management is the advertising campaign that you have about yourself. What makes you who you are? There is only one Charlie Smith. There's only one Tyler Johnson in this world. You have a unique gift. You have a unique divine spark inside of you. What makes that who you are? What areas of your life do you want to improve on? And I think that's, when I look at self-awareness, it's not just this rosy picture of, oh, I'm a good guy. It's like, what parts of your life do you want to improve upon? And then how are you going to do that, Charlie? And it's not judging myself, Tyler. It's actually, you use the term, it's being aware of myself, honest self-reflection without judgment, identifying what makes me, special and unique. What gifts do I have? What areas of my life am I not happy with that I want to improve upon? And then how am I going to do that? And any incremental change, any incremental shift can automatically start to shift how I see myself. Because to your point, we watch ourselves, right? So I've been watching myself. You can't lie to yourself. So your eyes and your subconscious are watching your behaviors. And if your beliefs and your behaviors are out of alignment, then all of a sudden you create this integrity gap. And I say, like, for my golfers, it's like the golf ball knows who you brought to the course today. If you've been putting your reps in the morning, if you got in a fight with your girlfriend and you haven't resolved it in your mind and you can't shift your focus we know who we are. But if we don't take time to understand it and learn about it, then we can never kind of be it.
I love it. And I think you mentioned belief there. I think it's just always one of those foundational things when it comes to confidence and um, self-awareness of our confidence. Can you talk about maybe how young people, athletes, can build a belief that isn't just hokey, but it actually moves towards confidence?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, I won't go into this too deep, but I will tell you this: the first thing to build a belief system is to remove your limiting beliefs. I have a good friend of mine in the performance space, George Mumford, who's worked, with Kobe and with Michael Jordan. He's, considered the performance whisperer. And he said something to me really groundbreaking for me when I was struggling with my own identity. And he says, you're kind of habitually thinking old thoughts about yourself. And you need to shift that because your limiting beliefs, Charlie, act like a gatekeeper to your new healthy core beliefs. And the visualization that I had of that is like imagine a sponge that you wanted to wipe up some new healthy core beliefs with, but you had the cellophane wrapped around the sponge. You can't absorb those new healthy core beliefs. So the first thing is you have to look at those limiting beliefs that you're holding on to, whatever that not good enough narrative, find out where that came from, challenge it, be aware of it, challenge it, and then change it. And so that's, I think, when we talk about beliefs, it's like we have to look at, I think David Goggin calls it our confidence cookie jar. What are the things that you've done to get where you are that you can rely on and become consciously competent about to project into the things you want to do next. We've all faced challenges. You know, you went from little league to club to high school ball. You know, you've made these advancements, and as you get to the next level, you start to become one of many, but you're still unique. And I think we start to compare ourselves instead of competing with ourselves to be better than we were yesterday. And so the belief system comes from self-awareness, understanding what it is that you've done up until now to face challenges that you've had, and how can you apply those skills, those gifts, those characteristics of yourself to the next thing you want to do. Athletes and performers and people get confused that they need to feel confident before they take an action, and the feeling of confidence follows the actions of confidence. And so when we help people take confident actions and then see the results of those, then they start to feel more confident. I'll give you the best example I can for all of us. Riding a bike. Remember when you were a kid in the neighborhood growing up?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Training wheels. You saw all the kids that took the training wheels off and they fell and they got hurt and they scraped their knee and they scraped their knuckles and they got back up and they started to ride their bike again. If we left our training wheels on and didn't fall, we'd never get to go with our friends on those cool trails, you know. Yep. But the more you did it, the better you got at it. And now all of a sudden you're consciously competent. You ride a bike without even thinking about it. You're unconsciously competent after becoming consciously competent. So now you've learned to ride a bike and now you ride a bike without thinking. We just have to encourage people to take the training wheels off more often.
Yeah.
Fall more.
Yeah, I love it. You mentioned earlier influence, and I think that's such an important thing, especially for aspiring athletes. So, you know, whether they're trying to play varsity or college or beyond, who you surround yourself with, right? There's the old adage, you know, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future. Why is it so important that we surround ourselves with the right people that are also in alignment with the things we want to go after or achieve?
I think there's 2 reasons, and I've played both sides of this puzzle. So as an example, when I was in active alcoholism and addiction, I would hang around guys that were doing coke in the bathroom at the country club. So I was a country club member. So on the outside, it looked like I was who you thought I would be. But the people I hung around with made me feel okay with my mediocrity, you know, with my bad behavior. You know, it's okay to skip the workout. John skipped the workout. When you hang around with people that skip workouts, you become subconsciously associated with those behaviors. So the first thing is, in business, we say don't be the smartest person in the room. You want to be challenged. You want to be around people that can teach you. You want to be coached. You want to have your friends help you become better. And so better influence, better challenges, better result. The other thing is we're all needing at a human level connection, right? And when you strengthen connection, you strengthen results. There's the old pole horses before there were tractors. One pole horse could pull 8,000 pounds. When you put 2 of them together, they could pull 24,000 pounds, not 16. And within a month of working together, they could pull 32,000 pounds, right? So those are energy engines. And then there's energy anchors where, you know, the field doesn't get plowed, the weeds grow because, you know, both of the horses are sitting, you know, having a beer, playing video games. And so what we put into our lives is what we become.
I love it. Yeah, I appreciate you being vulnerable. You tell your story very well. And I think, you know, there's a power in vulnerability and leadership. Can you talk about, you know, why being able to accept yourself and be vulnerable really kind of leverages sometimes your opportunities and ability to lead others?
Yeah, it's a great question. God, it's a great question. And it's hard because, you know, we're taught, especially for men in the world, we're taught to have this kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, kind of this guy behind me, you know, this kind of into the wind cowboy mentality of just kind of toughen up. And the truth is every human being is fallible. Every human being has their struggle. We identify with each other through those struggles. When I talk about leadership, one of the important elements of leadership, one of the 8 C's of leadership I train is connection. And connection is going through shared adversity together, right? It's easy to be connected when we're winning. It's easy to be connected when we're practicing well. It's easy to be connected when we're closing lots of deals. What about when we're not? You know, can you stay connected to the people in your life, you know, through their adversity? Because, you know, I think leaders need to have vision, and the acronym that I use for vision is C. Servant leadership is the most important type of leader. So being responsible and accountable for the other guy's around you. I was just listening to Zach Sorensen, the mental performance coach for the Atlanta Braves, talking about the outfielder from the Cubs who gave the rain delay talk. Guy was batting 190, even though he'd had a big year, contract wise, you know, the money he got, he wasn't playing well. And he brought the guys in and said, look, who we are right now, you know, is not who we're going to be when we walk out of this dugout. And he gave this great talk at the rain delay of the World Series for the Cubs, you know, and what he told everybody is what he wanted them to be, how he had their back, how he saw who they were in the batter's box, and he knew that they were going to strike the next ball and rip it out of the park. And you don't have to have a C on your chest to be a leader. And just because you don't doesn't mean that you are one. So, you know, we lead through connection, and being vulnerable and sharing my own adversity connects me to my fellow man. Doesn't make me worse than them or better than them. It makes me one of them.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. You've I know some of the people I've also had on the podcast. So we've only played this game once or twice before, but I'm going to name a couple of my former guests. You mentioned one earlier, but I want to know how you would describe them in your experience in one or two words.
Sure.
So the first one, we'll start with George Mumford that you mentioned.
Love.
Brian Kane.
Intense.
Colin Henderson.
Thoughtful.
Yeah, I like playing that game. Those are amazing. Yeah. It's good. I definitely feel all those vibes and all those people as well. So,
well, and let me tell you how I experience you. Is authentic. You know, you're one of the most authentic dudes that I've run across, man. And again, you know, how we got connected and then watching what you do. You know, I think the one thing I love about all the people that you talked about is we're all in similar spaces of performance and helping people. And the lack of competition, or the lack of, like, you know, kind of staying disconnected. We connect, we get on each other's podcasts, we share our experience because we learn from each other. That, you know, I think we all talk about sharks do swim with sharks, and iron does sharpen iron, and all boats rise, you know, when we lift each other up. And it's an important element, because I think one of the things you and I share, and I want to make sure that this message gets out, is being of service isn't just when it's convenient. Being of service is when anybody needs you. I like to say I go where I'm needed until I'm needed where I go. It's like, I'm not here, you know, to sell anything. I'm not here to outperform anybody. I'm here to learn and grow and help others learn and grow, you know, by sharing my wisdom and learning from you.
I greatly appreciate that. You meant a lot. That almost got me choked up here, Charlie. Yeah, and I think on kind of, you know, bringing up some of those other people, you know, I think all of us in our journey, maybe it was some of those people. I know you mentioned George, but in your kind of transformation from who you were to who you are now, was there a couple people that played a major role and just had maybe a little bit greater influence on who you've become?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, George was officiated at my wedding. We met through an athlete who neither of us really have a relationship with today, that was training for the NBA, but George and I became instant soulmates, and he's had a huge impact in my role. Trevor Moad, before he passed away, Trevor Moad was a huge mentor of mine and a huge thought leader for me. He actually introduced me to his dad's book, Secret to the Slight Edge, which was the first kind of mental performance, personal development book I ever read. And it's one I pore over. And so both of those guys have had a huge impact on me. And then Brian, you know, and Colin are both in the mental performance space, but they've been my coaches and my mentors, helping me refine how I teach. Sure. But what's interesting about all of us, you know, and I've heard you share openly about your own depression, anxiety, we all come from, you know, George was a heroin addict, you know, Colin was a stutterer and a two-sport athlete who had mental performance issues. Brian says he was the most underperforming college baseball player. Yep. You know, we all come from adversity, you know, and I think the message for all of our athletes is your sport is what you do. Yeah. It's not who you are. You know, when we identify and we put all of our worth into making a shot, getting a hit, scoring a goal, you know, saving a goal, making a putt, you know, and then we don't, does that mean we're not, you know, you're such an overall person, and looking at all of the attributes, whether it's a friend, a brother, a son, a partner, an artist, you know, a music lover, a music maker, a music listener. It's just like we've got all of these things that make us who we are, and let's not limit ourselves to seeing ourselves as just success in our sport. Being an athlete is how you get up in the morning, how you go to bed at night, how you go through your whole day, how you are with your teammates, how you are with yourself, how you are with your coaches. Ralph Waldo Emerson has one of the greatest quotes, for me that I live by, which is, who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. I used to talk to people about who I was, but I wasn't acting as if and acting like that. So that congruency becomes really important.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things I harp on with athletes is, we talked about belief, we talked about influence. They're great, but eventually you do got to do stuff, right? We got to take action. And then most importantly, when we take that action, it's got to be in alignment with those beliefs we talked about earlier. Can you talk about how sometimes maybe self-awareness is that key, but how living in alignment really is kind of the accelerator to reaching the places we want to get?
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find this. So here's all of my athletes on their phone have their core values. So this is one of my tennis players: courageous, hardworking, own opinion, respectful, disciplined, and grateful. Here's one of my ball players: patience, empathy, discipline, and leadership. Your values are so installed. Like, I don't know how you're going to show up every day and how the results that you're going to get, but you can always get your values. So when you have values, the first thing is you have values. What are your values? That self-awareness you just talked about. What are your values? Secondly, define them. What do those values mean, right? So empathy or hard work or courageous means different things to me than it does to Sally or Brenda. So let's get clear about what that means for you. And then identify the behaviors that are above the line for that value and the behaviors that are below the line. That's self-awareness. That's like this idea that I can be, have, and do anything if I live in alignment. But live in alignment with what? It's like I have principles that I have right on my desk, of the filter that I put my life through. And principles are like muscles. Just like you work a muscle in the gym, if one of your principles is discipline and you sleep through your alarm and you're late to practice, then you're not being disciplined. You're out of alignment. And if you ignore that, you stay out of alignment, then you start to have that kind of integrity gap I talked about. And then you start to blame the coaches or blame your teammates, and you start to look at what other people are doing instead of looking what you can do, right? So why something's happening is not a great question. What can I do about it is the answer. And those values and a value structure. So identify them, define them, and then identify the behaviors that go along with them. So in practice, if you are going to be somebody who's, value is leadership, like my boy here, what does leadership mean to you? And how are you a leader? And what are the behaviors that go along with it? And if you live by those, man, the at-bats take care of themselves. The goals life takes care of itself. Yeah. Kind of like a scorecard, right? Right, Jeff?
No doubt. I like to talked about kind of the defining some of those things. I think especially in a world that can seem buzzworthy at times. And can you speak a little bit, because I think it's especially important when we even branch out to have shared values and visions within a team, that a coach and a team has shared definitions. Because I think what a coach think is toughness may be different from what a 18, 20-year-old thinks toughness is. Can you talk a little bit about just why shared definitions are so powerful to help us actually focus on those core items?
Yeah, a great question and an important question, right? So clarity creates consistency, right? And I'll give you an example. A lot of people will say we're a family, right? Well, family to one person may mean who they call when they're in jail, and family to another person may mean the reason they never go to jail.
I'll interrupt, because I think that one's that gets overused. And I think I've worked with athletes who came from a great family and ones who have no concept of what one was.
Exactly right.
And so when a coach uses it, it's like, well, my family was shitty, so I'm supposed to be shitty to everyone. Like, so it's like, I think that's in college athletics. I've seen that one get thrown out there with confusion amongst the crowd.
Yeah, it's exactly why it's important. So I have a coach who says, "Oh, we're selfless." If I ask the 16 guys on his team what selfless means, each of them have a different idea of what selfless means. But what does it mean to be selfless on this team? Does that mean that, when we're coming out of the game, that we hand the towel to the guy, we high five every guy, that we all run over and pick a guy up when he takes a charge, that that we rebound in practice for everybody. What does selfless mean to you? How do we know if we're being selfless? Because if you can't answer the question, then it's just an idea. And so clarity creates consistency, and consistency creates a performance measurement. And so if you don't know what it is, how do you know if you're being it? And how do you, most importantly, the two elements of really having a, let's call them core values for an organization or a team, how do you grow them and how do you hold each other accountable for them? Because like you said, if it means something different to me and I'm like, hey bro, I'm being selfless, and you're like, yeah, but you did this. Well, that's selfless to you, not me. Let's all agree on what it is, hold each other accountable for it. Now, like when you talk about culture, it's a conditioned set of beliefs that an organization has that drives behaviors of that organization that creates results on that team or organization. So if you don't get those parts of it and have clarity, then you can't hold each other accountable, which is really important in leadership, and you can't grow as an organization.
I like how you brought up accountability, because I think that's a coaches want, I cringe when I hear give me buy-in or ask for buy-in, but they want to, what they really want is accountability. And I think shared definitions, is what can leverage to gain more accountability from your team and teammates.
Yeah,
So I love that you brought that up.
I think what I've learned for me is the only real accountability is self-accountability. The only real discipline is self-discipline. It's like ultimately I have to be able to look in the mirror and say, look, I'm accountable and responsible for the things I do from the time I get up in the morning till the time I go to bed. Those are all Charlie choices. Nobody else. Nobody else has this pen. Nobody else is telling me what time to get up, what to eat, what to drink, how to sleep, how long to be on my phone. Those are all how long to practice, how long to meditate, how long to visualize, how long to get into the batting cages, how long to go to the putting green, how long to work on my Excel spreadsheet to make my sales. Those are Charlie choices, and Charlie choices create Charlie's life in every aspect: spiritual, emotional, physical, financial. That old adage, right, Tyler? I'm responsible.
For sure. I think it's the biggest thing I always tell kids, like I'm not getting a chance. Well, what kind of choices are going to give you a chance? Our choices will create chances.
Yeah,
I think
I love that. Chris Thomas, who played wide receiver in the NFL for 8 or 10 years and won a Super Bowl with the Rams, a good friend of mine, and he was not getting a lot of reps in practice, and he was a victim. He's like, I came out of this school, I fought through to get to the NFL, I've had this career, and I'm only getting this many reps in practice, and he wasn't making good use of those reps. And Chris Thomas became an elite receiver in the NFL when he said, every rep's my rep. The reps I get, I am going to be the sharpest route runner. I'm going to make every catch I can. And instead of worrying about the reps he wasn't getting, he started enjoying the ones he did get. And it totally changed the trajectory of his career.
Yeah. I think it's like when I've choice and chance, I was like, you can make choices that are in alignment with your beliefs. It's hard for random chance to always be in alignment with who you are. But
yeah.
in the choice part, we get a little leverage there. One other question that I always like to ask, in the work you do now, what brings you the most joy, Charlie?
Watching people grow and learn about themselves and feel fulfilled. I mean, the word I use, happy's hard, joy's hard. It's hard to be positive all the time, but if I can be fulfilled and I can be fulfilled in what I do every day as a person, I can help other people feel fulfilled in their lives. It gives me the most joy. To give somebody a solution. I think one of the things I think you and I share is that we're solution focused. We're not here to talk about necessarily your feelings, but talk about giving you strategies that you can do to deal with your feelings. You're going to have feelings, to say that you shouldn't feel a certain way, frustrated, angry, sad, disappointed. Those are human emotions. It's never those emotions that get in our way. It's how do we react, and giving people strategies and skills to deal with the things that are holding them back. It's like these light bulbs go on. It's like, wait, I can think about that differently. I can have a different narrative. I can deal with that differently. And that will actually make me better. Because I think, we hear a lot from coaches who are really focused on game planning, X's and O's, and they really don't have the time, or know the skills or drills that their kids need to develop their athletes, their performers, to get them into the right mindset when they're not at practice. And so I love giving, strategy and tactics to people to change their lives.
I love it. I love your passion about everything. That's, I think, one of the things I always feel back from you, whether it's through social media or our interactions and things like that. And I think you have so much to give and to teach through your own experiences. And it's kind of as we wrap up, if you could hop in a time machine, I think going through the things you've done, and you could give 16-year-old self one piece of advice, what's the one thing you would go back and whisper to 16-year-old self?
Yeah, great question. Wow. Got a lot to say to that kid, but the first thing I'd say is, hey, buddy, you don't have to do this alone, man. Ask for some help. Let somebody know what's going on. You don't have to win or worry alone. You got a lot of stuff going on. You're a 16-year-old kid. You don't have to figure this out on your own. Grab an ear of somebody you trust, have a conversation with them, and ask for help.